Will Dwyane Wade be the last shooting guard to lead a championship team? Where does Wade's legacy fit in? Will positionless basketball eliminate traditional positions? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the BBall Breakdown Podcast. Today, I am pleased to bring on senior NBA writer with The Athletic and longtime friend of the Breakdown, Michael Lee. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, my pleasure. It's been we've been talking for a long time. I think we might have been going back since like the beginning of B-Ball Breakdown, maybe like 2010, 2011. We were interacting and doing stuff together. I think does that sound right to you?
Yeah, definitely back when I was with the Post for sure.
Yeah, Washington Post, and then all sorts of places on your stops, and now you're you deservedly so the senior NBA writer for The Athletic. I feel like we're partially related because I do a weekly video on The Athletic myself, so I could contact you directly through Slack. That's just exciting.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so
well. Let's talk a little bit about an article you wrote recently about Dwyane Wade and how he might end up being the last, dominant two guard on a title team. And I was wondering, what was the genesis of the idea? How did that even come into your head to begin with when you started to write this article?
I've been thinking about it for a while now, primarily because I was looking at like Devin Booker and his situation in Phoenix. And I know that they've been trying to build a team around him, and they've been having a lot of struggles. And he's just great talent. He's invited to Team USA, and he's putting up all-star numbers, but the team stinks. So, And I was just wondering, I was like, man, can you really build a really championship team around a shooting guard anymore? And I was just thinking about all the shooting guards through history that have been the foundation of a championship. And I was like, okay, yeah, there's Michael Jordan, there's Kobe Bryant, and there's Dwyane Wade. And then I was like, is there anybody else? And when I kept looking, I was like, oh, wow, okay. It's those three, and Jerry West are the only shooting guards that have ever been Finals MVP. And then I was like, okay, that's four in the history of the NBA. And Jerry West was on the losing team. His team lost when he won Finals MVP. So there's only been three guys that have actually won the championship as the Finals MVP. And then I was like, oh, wait, Dwyane Wade's retiring this year. And it just sort of hit me that, for all the credit that Dwyane Wade gets for being, a great player, three-time champion, scoring champion, Olympian, everything that he's accomplished through his career, I don't think it's really been mentioned enough that he's the last shooting guard standing, and I don't think people really understand how significant that is, that he was the best player on a championship team at the shooting guard position, because we know the whole history of the NBA. We know that big men have typically been the main, leaders of championship teams, going from George Mikan to Bill Russell to Will Chamberlain to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You can just go down the list of all the big men who have led their teams to championship. And then you have Michael Jordan sort of come through in the 90s. And I think one of the reasons why everyone sort of considers Michael being the GOAT or the greatest of all time is because he cracked through that requirement for a big to dominate the league. He won 6 championships in the shooting guard position, and, it had never happened before. Right. And I think for him to be a little guy, relatively little, not to me or you, but to like a 7-footer, he's a little guy, and he's out there just kind of taking everybody's hearts for, that period. And then you had Kobe that sort of, was in that same vein. And then just when I just thought about how Dwyane Wade sort of had his window there in 2006 when he won the championship with the Heat, and it just sort of seemed to be the perfect storm where this combo guard, this tweener, who people didn't really know what he was when he entered the league, sort of took advantage of rules changes and just in everything from the pick and roll, reliance on pick and rolls. And he just sort of became this dominant force. And he broke through and won a championship. And now on the way out, you can look back and sort of take a step back and really admire, one, what his career is, but also what he represents, in that right now there doesn't appear to be anyone for him to pass the baton to as a leader of a championship team at shooting guard.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because even though we would attribute Dwyane Wade to sort of the standard shooting guard mold like Kobe and like MJ, if you look at that third year and they won the title in 05-06, he averaged like almost 7 assists per game, and then he actually went up from there the next year too. So I wonder if maybe, and if I'm not mistaken, the championship year he won against Dirk and against Dallas, that was the last year before. Wait, when the rules changed, that was the year the rules changed for handshaking.
04, 05 changed. That was
Okay.
the year Steve Nash won the MVP.
Okay, right.
And, that's when the whole point guard revolution started, when
Right.
you needed to have an elite point guard to sort of be the foundation of a really successful team. That started right there with the change in the handshake rules and just trying to open up the game. It also ended that sort of isolation-heavy basketball that, kind of became the norm from Jordan's days, and then everyone tried to sort of duplicate that with, say, Vince Carter or Tracy McGrady or all the Jordan heirs that followed. They were supposed to be the next in line. Everyone sort of followed that blueprint, but it sort of led to some ugly basketball, low-scoring basketball, not entertaining basketball. And, you got to give credit to guys like Jerry Colangelo and just people within the league office who were really ambitious in trying to open up the game and make it more fun and more watchable. And Dwyane Wade was happening, his second year. If you look at just the numbers that he put up his second year, that's when he really became a star. And I remember covering the Washington Wizards that year. They lost to the Heat in the first round. They got swept in the first round. I'm sorry, in the second round they got swept in the second round. And Shaq took the last 2 games off to rest up for the conference finals. People don't realize this. That when in 2005, that Shaq missed 2 playoff games. In the semifinals, primarily because they had so much confidence Dwyane Wade could just handle it on his own, and he did. And I think he had a 40-point game, maybe in the closeout. And I remember Eddie Jordan was asked a question about Dwyane Wade, and his comment was like, this will look back and we'll say a star is born.
Yeah.
And it really was when he emerged as a star. They lost, the Pistons that year because he got hurt in the conference finals. But I just think, that next year he came back and he was just in a zone. And, I remember talking to Dwyane about just this whole situation, about why there hasn't been another shooting guard to lead a championship team. Kobe obviously did it, but I'm just saying Kobe's already retired, so Dwyane's the last guy left. That's sort of what the whole point of it was. But because Kobe went ahead and did it in 9-10, so he's the last guy to actually do it, but Wade's the last guy left. But that period in 06 was just a unique period for him to sort of break through. And so I asked him, why there haven't been other shooting guards, and one of the reasons he said is that when LeBron came into the league and he became the best player, the whole obsession around the league was, I got to get me one of him. Like I need somebody like that. I need a 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guy who's just going to be able to handle the ball and make plays for others and just dominate and just make everybody clear out and get out the way. And you've seen now that Kevin Durant's been the Finals MVP the last 2 years. So you sort of need that elite wing, especially at the small forward position, or an elite point guard. See with Steph Curry, that if you have that, then you have a chance to win. But the shooting guard has sort of been marginalized, and you have some elite all-star shooting guards, but none of them are leading championship teams. James Harden is the reigning MVP. Houston had a chance to probably win the championship last year if, say, Chris Paul doesn't get hurt or all the injuries that they had, or even they make a 3 in Game 7. They don't miss 27 in a row. But the fact remains that it hasn't happened, and that there's been a certain player, and he always said the best player in the game is typically going to be the guy that wins the championship or is there at the finish. So I don't know if he's the last one or there never will be one, but I think it'll be a while before we just acknowledge a shooting guard as the unquestioned best player in the game. And I think that has to be the first step before another champion is led by a shooting guard.
It's a huge weekend for the NBA as Golden State visits Philadelphia and we get KD versus Simmons. Plus, the Rockets are in Boston and Kyrie versus Harden will bring some fireworks. And that means there is only one place to get in on all this action, and it's called betonline.ag. Sports, casino, virtual casino, you name it. BetOnline.ag is CLNS Media's preferred sportsbook online. Place your picks for those games and more this weekend by going online to sign up today at clnsmedia.com/win. Try in-game live betting where you can participate in all the action with every play. Use the promo code CLNS50 for a 50% cashback bonus on first deposit. That's clnsmedia.com/win, and the code is CLNS50. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. It's really interesting only because, the definitions have changed as well. And so now we don't
Absolutely.
really, I don't know, why is Steph Curry a point guard at this point? He's averaging, we can't really use the number of assists per game in theory, but he's only averaging 5.3 this year. And he really hasn't ever been a really high volume assist guy. He had 8, I think, one year, that maybe the first championship year. So it's and certainly the way he plays now in their offense, I would say he might be more of a two guard anyway. So I think maybe that.
Yeah, Reggie Miller feels like he's a shooting guard as well. So yeah.
Yeah, what does he know? But anyway, yes, he that is right. So it's because again, the Reggie Miller's a great example. He was a guy who literally just catch and shoot. He would off the dribble a little bit, but he wasn't going to be there to set people up too much. Maybe he'd drive the hole and maybe kick out every once in a while, which is also an interesting thing because back then the idea, in the 90s and the 80s, certainly, if you were to drive in the middle and then kick out for a three, that was just ridiculous. You're in the lane.
You're right there. You're 10 feet from the basket. Shoot it. Don't make a 23-foot shot. Yeah, exactly.
So
I think it is debatable as to what positions are now. Do positions even matter? We're sort of in this position, this era, where you can have a 7-footer like Giannis who is just out there making plays for everybody, handling the ball. But what is he? He sometimes he's a small ball center, sometimes he's a small forward, then he's a power forward, then at times he's a point guard. So the guys play interchangeable positions now, so it's really hard. And that's why I spoke to Rick Carlisle, because right now Luka Doncic is listed as a shooting guard for the Dallas Mavericks, and they pretty much invested a lot in building their team around him now because of just what he's done as a rookie. He's been really impressive. And so I asked him, "Is Luka a shooting guard?" And he just said, "I don't think we can really say right now because we got to figure out how this team is going to be built, going forward." And I thought it was a unique quote just because what is Luka Doncic? What are a lot of these guys now? I think we sort of programmed ourselves just from tradition and just from our basic knowledge of basketball that you have 5 positions. You have a shooting guard, you have a point guard, you have a small forward, a power forward, and a center. But the game has evolved so much over time, and it's really hard to put guys in boxes. But I think that our typical idea of a shooting guard is someone between 6'3" and 6'6", and typically plays off the ball, but sometimes will play on the ball. And that's sort of where Dwyane Wade falls.
Well, as we're speaking, I'm on BBall Ref, kind of just doing a quick search for what I think I'm looking at is who are the players maybe between 6'3" and I guess we can kind of go 6'8", who score at least 20 a game but get less than 3 assists per game, because that's sort of the Klay Thompson mold, right? And the question might end up being is Klay Thompson a museum piece at this point? Are we now seeing where Melo is now a complete dinosaur? We're probably not going to see anybody who does the jab step, ISO like that anymore. And I don't know if we're going to find too many of these guys like Klay anymore, who are literally all they do is shoot and move out the ball like the Rip Hamiltons. Yeah. And I'm wondering,
the only guy I could think of now is a Buddy Hield in Sacramento. Mm-hmm. I sort of feel like there are certain types of guards now, and you have a Donovan Mitchell in Utah who seems to be right there in the Dwyane Wade sort of mode, where he's a combo guard where you can't really call him a point guard, but he has the ball in his hands a lot. he's a shooting guard, but but then you have a guy like say Devin Booker, who I think when he came in the league was would be considered a Klay Thompson type, but given the issues that the Suns have had at the point guard position the last couple of years, he's sort of been thrust into a playmaking role. Bradley Beal would be seen typically as a traditional shooting guard, but now that John Wall's been out and he sort of had to carry the Wizards this year, he's doing a lot more playmaking. DeMar DeRozan is definitely somebody who is, I guess, from the Kobe Bryant tree in terms of just how he likes to play. And I know he took a lot of pride in being a guy who would average, 25 points, but not shooting threes. He's like the stats, I think Dwyane Wade and Michael Jordan, like in DeMar DeRozan, I can't remember what the scoring average was, but whatever the scoring average was, career high scoring average DeMar DeRozan had, those three were the only guys that did it without attempting threes, a lot of threes. So, but now he's in San Antonio where the ball is in his hand. He's averaging a career high assist this year. So I think the position is evolving at shooting guard, and you have to be able to do more to really be the leader of a team. I think Klay Thompson benefits from the fact that he plays with a guy like Steph who, can make plays for him, can find him in the corner. He also has a Draymond who makes plays for him, or Kevin Durant who makes plays for him, so he can just be in that traditional role. And I don't think he has any issue. I don't think he's sitting around wishing he had the ball in his hands so that he could dribble more and do more. I think he's content with getting his 25 points and just standing out in the corner, having those games where he scores 60 on 11 dribbles. Right. Like I said in the stories, like he can go an entire game having fewer dribbles than James Harden will have on a possession.
Right, that's crazy. Well, we should give Klay a little bit of credit because he does come off some handoffs and he does try and penetrate, but it's definitely not much of it, not his thing really. But he, and I think it's more. There's nobody just sits just camps in the corner now. I mean, you got to be able to do more just to be on the floor. Just right. The requirements of skill in today's game just makes it, if you're just sort of a specialist, that you're not going to get a prominent role as a specialist. Right. Well, but we still have certain players like LeBron who require the specialists because, and I think this is what it's interesting. Maybe the crux of the matter here is really about could you have 5 playmaking players who are equal in ability who can all do that, because you might not be able to manage that like what we're seeing with the Celtics right now, even though Kyrie is obviously the undisputed guy. But I wonder if you lack too many of these guys who really are just the quote unquote role players that do very specific things, I wonder if that's going to be a problem going forward, and especially as the more and more players improve their skills more and more. We're going to have better ball handlers, better shooters, and all those things. So it's like the coaches are going to have their hands full trying to figure out how to juggle that when indeed they will have more than they've ever had before on the one team of these guys that can all do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you bring up the Boston angle, because sometimes you can't have too much of a good thing, and it makes it hard if guys aren't willing to accept roles or understand their roles. But I think it's better for the game to have more skill out there. I think that one of the reasons why, I grew up in that era, but I'm not a fan of the 90s style of basketball, is that there was just so many guys who were unskilled that played because either they were just great defensive players or they just had just one, skill they were special in, be it shooting or something else. And it sort of made for an ugly game. I think that when you have the Golden State Warriors, as the counter, where you have a bunch of skilled players out there on the floor, and guys who can make plays for others, it creates just a more beautiful game to me.
I hear you for sure, but also it requires an offense that allows all that beautiful basketball to come out.
That's true.
And that's the other thing. Which
and I think you have a veteran situation with Golden State where guys are about winning at this stage of his career. Where I guess when you look at a team like Boston, you still have young guys who are trying to establish themselves and make a name for themselves. and that sometimes it makes it more difficult to sacrifice.
Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. While other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, Robinhood doesn't charge any commission fees, so you can trade stocks and keep all of your profits. Plus, there is no account minimum deposit needed to get started, so you can start investing at any level. The simple, intuitive design of Robinhood makes investing easy for newcomers and experts alike. View easy-to-understand charts and market data and place a trade in just 4 taps on your smartphone. You can also view stock collections, such as 100 most popular. With Robinhood, you can learn how to invest in the market as you build your portfolio, discover new stocks, track your favorite companies, and get custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right moment to invest. Robinhood is giving listeners of BBall Breakdown a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help you build your portfolio. Sign up at breakdown.robinhood.com. Sure. Well, I mean, you can do a whole treatise on the Lakers, which they had a lot of the young guys making a name for themselves. You had some older guys who were just hanging on. Then you have LeBron. I mean, I don't think anyone is surprised that it's kind of gone the way it has, and they've had to cut people, literally just cut them because it wasn't working. So I think that might be the thing that the GMs across the board generally and that kind of ignore is the chemistry notion and how these things will fit together ultimately. And instead, they look at these guys as more of as assets that they can somehow fit together in a math puzzle. And I feel like certainly with the Celtics per se and the Lakers, it's like we found out that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a lot, and I think that's what you got to give Dwyane Wade credit for. Even when he was a guy who was a MVP candidate, never won it, but he's a scoring champion, and then he decided to say, hey, let me bring LeBron and Chris Bosh to my neighborhood and see what we can do together. And he made it happen because he was just willing to make the sacrifices and
it took him a while, right? It took him maybe
the first
season.
year, yeah. It took him a season, but he did it, and he wound up getting 2 more rings for it. And it allowed LeBron to become the LeBron that he is, that we all know and appreciate and admire now. And it's sort of, in some ways, it may have diminished Wade, and it may have led to him not being as appreciated, until like where he is now, where he's going out and fans are really showing how much they respect him. But I think that it helped that he's in Miami and he gets to go out with the team that we associate him with.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's always nice to do that when they can still play a little bit. I know we saw the Kareem farewell tour. I'm trying to think of the other guys they did that with. Not too many of the guys get that kind of respect. Oh yeah,
Dr. J was the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember he didn't really have a farewell tour, but I remember when Kevin Garnett was in Brooklyn, and I was like, man, it's like, is he gonna go out like this, like where no one cares that he leaves, like he's an influential player, ushered in the high school, perhaps the pro era, and he was in Brooklyn just kind of with this lousy team that was going nowhere. Mm-hmm. I remember talking to Flip Saunders about it, just how it was weird to see him, like I knew he couldn't retire as a Brooklyn Net. It just didn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that, well, if he was in Minnesota or Boston, places where his impact is felt, then it probably would be appreciated a lot more. And then like 2 weeks later, he traded for him, and I was like, hey, did I plant that seed, or were you already working on this? And I think that's sort of what's helping Wade on his way out, because if Wade was, say, with the Cleveland Cavaliers or somewhere, or the Lakers or something, I don't think he'd be getting this kind of love. But the fact that he's with his original franchise and he's having those moments, like he's beating the Warriors and, beating his chest, and in Miami where that's where we're so accustomed to him doing those feats. I think it helps. And I think it's good for him, because I talked to Dwyane just about how, he's really starting to understand the influence that he's had on the game, how much the younger generation really admires him and appreciates him. I think the one cool thing is, like, Chris Paul was saying the other day, that when the season began, the plan was for Dwyane Wade to have, jersey swaps with Carmelo, Chris Paul, and LeBron. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
His Banana Boat brothers were going to be the guys who he got their jerseys when they played each other, and he's going to save those jerseys and hang those on the wall. It'd be like going out with my brothers. But the minute that he made that first exchange, everybody wanted it. Guys were lining up to be the guy to get that Dwyane Wade jersey, and it's sort of become this really kind of beautiful thing to see at the end of every game. Like who gets the Dwyane Wade jersey? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great way for people to for players to make those acknowledgments. Like Bradley Beal, the last time that they were in Miami, made it clear to Dwyane that he was his idol and he's somebody he looked up to. And I think as a competitor, it's easier to say that to a guy that is leaving than somebody who's still trying to bust you, on a nightly basis. You can really, yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, at least they're not going to leave him a rocking chair like they did with the rocking chair was with Kareem, I believe, to make fun of how old he was.
Yeah,
that are giving it's definitely a nice moment. And here's the thing that's interesting about his legacy and what he's left of the game, because he doesn't shoot threes. He cuts to the basket, which is probably one of his bigger traits that he has, which people don't even do that much anymore. So I wonder if the actual playing style itself is not the biggest impact he's had in the game, only because it looks like the trend clearly looks to this point where that those two things are going away. You're not going to have shooting guards anymore that can't shoot threes, and everyone likes to spot up and stay behind the line when the drive comes instead of cutting. So I wonder if that's the legacy is going to be his. I don't know what that is. What is his legacy ultimately? The way he played, how hard he played, or what?
Yeah, I mean, just that will, that sheer will, that competitiveness, and also that that he led the evolution to where it is, where you see, say, a James Harden now, mm-hmm. Who's a bit of a combo guard, playmaker, scorer, but he's also somebody who's taken that, say, playmaking and scoring from Wade. That not from Wade, but he studied him, and then he added the 3-point shot, and sort of made it something a requirement, and he has a step back, and so you can see the evolution from what the shooting guard position was to what it is now. But like I said, growing up, the image has been the Michael Jordan, one player dominates, and everyone else gets out the way, and then you have Kobe who sort of followed that same routine. But then you have Wade who was like, okay, I can score, but I also can make plays for others, so I'll do that. And now you see a guy like Harden who does scoring, playmaking with the 3-point shot. So you see guys like Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and all these guys now, Donovan Mitchell, who sort of have to do the same thing. So you see the evolution. He just was he's the transitional player.
Yeah.
He's the guy that took you from Kobe to Harden.
Right. And not to be overlooked, both Kobe and MJ played in the same offense, which allowed them to make that to win, where they weren't probably going to do that without it. So, and again, the triangle doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all, but it certainly has a lot of the concepts that we are seeing now anyway, and that sort of led to them becoming more invincible than they were. So, it's a fascinating career that Wade has spanned. He's almost like those guys like, not Marty McSorley, but the other guy who was the last hockey player to wear a helmet. I always forget, and I'm going to look it up as we talk. Anyway,
I definitely don't know hockey, so that would be something that you would know better than me.
I don't, but I'm going to tell you right now because I always forget it, and it takes Craig McTavish. He's got the nice mullet and everything out there, but nonetheless, it's a fascinating take on a thing where everything's in cycles. I don't think you can ever say never, right? As far as they'll never have a quote unquote shooting guard like that to win. But it is interesting that even, when we're talking about the big man domination that had happened and then it went away, we still in the draft are drafting these like big men who are more traditional looking big men, like even, with Phoenix this year,
Taking Ayton over Doncic,
and it's like the guy you want to be drafting is like the 6'8" guy that can shoot threes, and yet those guys still and who are athletic, and there are those guys out there. They're just getting drafted like 9th or 10th. It's still so bizarre to me that these executives are still clinging to or valuing overall this like the big man.
Well, I mean, it still says something that you can get points at the rim. I mean, if you can do that and you got a big guy who can intimidate on the defensive end, then it's kind of hard to resist. And, although you've also seen situations where, Portland probably wishes that it had taken Kevin Durant over Greg Oden now, even though at the time everybody's like, oh, you got to get the big man. Well, what about the freakish 7-foot forward who can do everything, shoot from anywhere, make any shot possible, be efficient, and lead you to 2 championships.
Right. Well, how about this? If you look at all the list of the last, however many title winners, who had a dominant big man that whose main great attribute was protecting the rim? I don't think I see anybody on this list going back a ways.
I'm trying to think of the last one. I mean, honestly, the last. Not I won't say dominant, but like the last really good defensive center on a championship team. Other than say Tim Duncan, but before that, I guess Tyson Chandler on the 11 Mavericks. But you're right, the Heat didn't have one. The Warriors didn't have one. I mean, the Spurs will have to now we have to argue a whole other thing. Was Duncan the center or was he not? And can we say that Duncan was like the rim protecting? I mean, I guess he blocked shots and he did that. He wasn't. He wasn't. Like Hakeem Olajuwon with it. Yeah. So all of a sudden we're starting. I don't know. I'm painting a picture here of like, okay, I think we could find an energetic big man that's going to run the rim. You can throw lobs to him. I think you can find the guy that you need for a title team, lower down in the draft than the way they valued them. And I will probably, the Clint Capella kind of guy you could always find. I feel like later on, and they still, try and waste the draft pick at the top. Or Rudy Gobert. But I think it also takes a while for a lot of big men to come into their own too.
I can't talk about Rudy Gobert because the Jazz fans have abandoned me for making fun of his hands.
Oh no.
Well, his hands aren't great, right?
No, they're not, but they are great when it comes to sending the shot the other direction.
Oh, okay, sure. On the defensive end, for sure. I'm just thinking whenever he rolls in, I pointed out and they get really upset. So anyhow, I apologize.
Well, let's not even go there.
No, but anyway, well, let's wrap this up. As far as what we're talking about with Dwyane Wade, it's a fantastic article, and in fact, you've already written. You were so prolific. You've written a few more in the interim that everyone should head over to the Athletic to read. What's the latest you have up there on the Athletic?
I have a piece on actually big men, the Portland Trailblazers, and just what they're doing with Yusuf Nurkic and the addition of Enes Kanter, and just how they're trying to get more talent and having 2 low post presences on the floor at all times. Just making sure that whenever Nurkic sits, there's a Kanter there, and how the Blazers have come up small in the postseason last year, but just how they're going big to try to make sure they don't do it again.
I haven't checked yet because I need to get my eyeballs on that, but they're not playing them together at all, are they?
No, they shouldn't. But they are, making sure that there's somebody out there who can get the offensive glass. I mean, it does affect Zach Collins. Maybe they'll find a way to incorporate him as they just figure out what's working and what's not. But I think Nurkic is having a great year, and we know that he's a great trash talker. But he's also, become much more consistent this year. He's having, the best season of his career. I think he's finding comfort zone. And he's not just scoring and rebounding. He's also improving his assists. And it's taking a lot of pressure off Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum to have to carry the team every night. And I think that's one of the reasons why, Portland's a team that people are kind of sleeping on. And they're right now, I don't think people think they're going to get out of the first round because they're matched up with Houston in it. But they got talent now. They got Rodney Hood, and they have a lot of pieces that aren't necessarily, world beaters. But I think that you don't always have to swing for the fences when you acquire talent. You just got to swing for the right swing for the right, advance the runner. Sometimes you got to advance the runner, and I think that's sort of what Portland's done, picking up Rodney Hood and Enes Kanter, that it's not that they're trying to hit a home run. They're just trying to get a little further so they can have a nice rally.
For sure. And shout out to
use some baseball terminology.
Right. Well, shout out to Neil O'Shea he's one guy who seems to understand, chemistry and how pieces fit together. So great point on the Blazers. I'm going to keep my eye on them as well, maybe even get a video out. So, well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Michael. Fantastic stuff. Can't wait to read more from you at The Athletic. And you have to come back on maybe before the season ends.
Yeah, man, just whatever. Just give me a buzz, and I'm here.
All right, you got it. And don't forget, sports fans, that BBall Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Michael?
Always, man.